Hello, we are DoubleHolz, a team of two architectural designers, Clarissa Lim and Kevin Lin. The name of the project and exhibition is Kombucha-cha. Before we start, we would like to thank Timothy Ng and Rachel Chi, who were part of the production team, and the support and sponsorship of the Seoul Biennale team, the Malaysian Institute of Art, and Cendana Cultural Economy Development Agency of Malaysia. We are very lucky and very thankful to be part of the Biennale this year. So the project began during a nationwide lockdown in Malaysia due to the pandemic. After settling into the reality of staying at home and working from home, as designers, we began to question how it could be possible to practice making and crafting within the space of an apartment flat. We thought it may be possible to give another life to domestic waste collected during the lockdown and transform it into a useful material without it ever leaving the apartment space. A modest laboratory was set up in our living room to produce biomaterials with a focus on using domestic waste and homegrown materials. The work seeks to be sustainable out of the necessity of leveraging limited resources within arm's reach and finds opportunities in the reuse and recycling of waste. We became interested in an ecology of waste from the scale of the apartment to that of the neighborhood and began collecting the waste from the neighborhood coffee shops and street food vendors nearby. We noticed that within walking distance, there were plenty of sources of waste that could be recycled locally. At this moment, we were also brewing kombucha, the fizzy fermented tea drink. The process creates layers of bacterial cellulose formed from a colony of bacteria and yeast. With some research, we quickly understood that the bacterial cellulose could be transformed and formed as larger sheets. And when dried and treated appropriately, could in fact be strong and durable sheet materials. Two lines of work happened in parallel. One, the growth and processing of the grown cellulose sheets, and the other, the making of fully biodegradable plastic composites with recycled waste aggregates. Methods and processes are borrowed from the medical and food industries and adapted to suit the tools that are commonly available domestically. A variety of composite materials were produced through testing. Waste aggregates that were used, as seen here, include coffee grounds, tea leaves, crushed eggshells, and sugarcane bagasse. The plastic binding the aggregates is derived from brown algae. This was bought and shipped from within Malaysia. As mentioned earlier, the process of brewing kombucha, the tea, forms a bacterial cellulose sheet at the interface of liquid and air. We grew sheets at roughly the size of an A3 piece of paper and tested different methods of growing, cleaning, and drying the sheets. In combining the two lines of work, the plastic composites are used as a coating for bacterial cellulose sheets. Here we tested visual and tactile outcomes of opacities, textures, and colors. The coating also provides water resistance for hydrophilic bacterial cellulose sheets.
DoubleHolz also developed a syllabus with Malaysian Institute of Art and a new Bachelor of Interior architecture program in line with the notion of creative hubs, a place where arts and cultural activities are formulated through designed programs. Displayed here are 4 proposals by students exploring the different ways of designing, branding, cultivating kinship, and programs of cooperation. In the future, Kombucha-cha hopes to take on this very model, cultivate relationships with our neighborly communities, and embed our migrating lab into local food waste exchange systems, and develop cooperative production methods exploring the capabilities of bacterial cellulose.
So for the Seoul Biennale, we wanted to exhibit the laboratory of work itself, not a representation of the work. The exhibit for Kombucha-cha displays the outcomes of its tests, exhibiting a work in progress. We wanted to show 2 things. First is the material itself and what goes into making it. Second is the mobility of the laboratory. With the exhibit, we want to suggest a paradigm shift to consider domestic waste not as trash for the landfill, but as useful byproduct.
The production phase of Kombucha-cha really began in May 2021. During this period, Malaysia was going into various stages of lockdown, where movement was controlled in between districts, and the majority of commerce were also shut down. We were working with Timothy, our design engineer, in his family house, as studios were not allowed to operate. With the natural Malaysian heat and sunshine, we explored different ways of drying the bacterial cellulose, from hanging, pulling with tension, to laying flat, and even oven baking. Our eventual method was to lay flat on wood, typically untreated, with a clear sheet of acrylic to ensure a flat and smooth finish. In between the acrylic and bacterial cellulose, we would also lay a cotton cloth to absorb the rapidly evaporating moisture lifted from the sheets. Luckily, the materials for growing bacterial cellulose are easily found in grocery stores. It was a ritualistic bi-weekly check-in, from heating and boiling the brew made of sugar, tea, and water to distribute into the casting vats, and patiently waiting for the sheets to grow. The climate of Malaysia is perfect to cultivate the right ecology for bacteria for the kombucha brew. As the bacterial cellulose grows, by learning through doing, I began to recognize the optimal thickness to harvest and then treat in bicarbonate soda to neutralize the acids.
We considered the sheets also as a kind of textile, and we tested ways to print patterns onto them. With Timothy, the design engineer, we tried ways of coating the sheets with spray patterns, using the alginate plastic and recycled aggregates through a mechanism that is 3D printed with a motor and then spun to create patterns onto the sheets. We also explored the formal possibilities of using alginate plastics and recycled materials through an exploration with digital tools. Digital fabrication tools such as 3D printers have become more readily available and now can occupy domestic spaces, and are complementary to the process of designing with homegrown materials and recycled domestic waste. The prototyping of a parametric formwork system for forming recycled sawdust, in this case, explores the balance between the precision of digital fabrication tools and the roughness and irregularity of homegrown materials and recycled waste.
Our design, a migrating laboratory, is transformable and portable. At rest, it sits as an unassuming table, a shelf, or maybe just a beautiful piece of furniture. When deployed, it exhibits, experiments, and functions as a laboratory for all our kombucha needs. There are many configurations that can be set up to display our experiments. This one was selected for the exhibition. The Migrating lab operates as a table, panel, experimentation lab, hanging display system, and even storage. And finally, here it is. We set it up on the road across from Timothy's house in a residential neighborhood. Our neighbors would pause on their afternoon jog to ask me questions about the project. Kombucha-cha here becomes a space of rest, a space of exhibition, and even to exchange ideas. So thank you for listening, and feel free to follow our journey on doubleholz.lab on Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you.